There we go. 3, 2, and 1. Well, Mayor Doug, welcome back to Mayor's Monday here at WSAU, WSAU.com. How's everything been here at City Hall for the last few weeks? Everything status quo?
Well, I guess I can finally say spring is in the air.
Yes.
Tuesday, we broke ground over at the 727 Jefferson Street for Habitat for Humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to say spring was in the air because it was pretty nice.
Oh, yeah.
It was pushing 80 degrees, I think, on Tuesday. So that was a good happening. They're getting to work on 2 homes over there on Jefferson Street. So that kind of thing is cool. And more of that to come with construction season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I know economic development was even talking about you've got basically some parcel lots here and there that the city owns, and it's actually kind of been at the top of Randy Pfeiffer and everybody in the economic development office's list of priorities is to kind of get those to individual developers so that way you can get homes built on them here in Wausau. How's that effort going? Because obviously you said you've got a couple in progress now.
Sure. So we tried a couple of different ways to make something happen. You saw what happened on Thomas Street. We had, and some others out on Bridge Street, where really wasn't the right bang for the buck at the moment for that particular style. So we're trying to adjust the spec to make sure that it's affordable, it fits the lot, it fits the neighborhoods. And I think, if the approach is we put for sale signs on some of these infills and offer them to somebody who has an idea, let them run with it, present their idea, let them take responsibility rather than the city necessarily being in the real estate business. And I know that's kind of a tired little song, but I think generally speaking, we would prefer to not be in the real estate business short of significant plan developments that we're working on.
Yeah, as you might say, that being kind of a lower dollar value job, you want the city to be involved in the big developments,
the transformational stuff. Yeah. The riverfront. We can control the infill lots, which are defined by city-owned properties and neighborhoods that we've acquired over the years, either through the tax roll. Some cases they may have burned down or may have always been vacant, but they're vacant lots in neighborhoods, not necessarily complying to current code. So there's a few things we have to be concerned with there. Do you build up 2 stories? Can you get a garage on these lots that, if you remember when they were built in the 1900s, people only had 1 car or no cars, and you parked in an alley. So those are all considerations. The Habitat homes are going to have 1-stall garages, and those lots on Jefferson Street do support that. So that'll be good to fit in with that neighborhood.
Yeah, and that goes right into what one of the biggest problems in the city is right now, and that is housing. I mean, that's, as I said, it's number 1 on Randy Pfeiffer and everybody down the hall's priority list, and you want to be seeing that. You want the people that come to town to be able to have a place that they can be proud to call their own and, proud to bring family and friends around to.
Right. We had another interview yesterday, Randy and I, with a business magazine, and we talked specifically about the developments that we have going right now in a number of units. So we knew a few years ago, a study, we needed at least 500 homes in the Wausau area, primarily Wausau, by the end of 2025. We're probably sitting at about 400, close to by the end of this year. And so we're on our way, a little bit behind. But once those come online here toward the end of the year, I hope we'll see, you're going to see light at the end of the tunnel. But then we have places like Aspirus. They're going to add 70 beds, $200 million investment in the Aspirus campus. You're going to need places for them to live. And the green tree out in the western part of the city is going to be expanding or developing. So we'll have, don't quote me on that, it could be as many as 100 homes out in that area, but that's not going to happen overnight either. It takes time. So I think we're on a good course. The market is starting to turn a little bit, so maybe we'll start seeing more inventory coming available. Um, that's the way we see it right now.
Yeah, and that's all great news because I wouldn't say a complete turnaround from what we were hearing years back before the West Side Battery Project, before Foundry on Third, where it seemed like it was more in desperation mode at that time. Obviously, those units are about to come online, so that takes a big chunk out. Is there any other projects like that that could be in the future where you knock out a good amount of those needed units kind of in one swing?
So the West Side Battery / now West Side Commons is looks like it's ahead of schedule. So they should be filling up here toward the end of the year. We're in discussions with Vanguard on the river. You've got, of course, we've talked about in the past the Colby and Colby units. I think that's 102 over by Colby and Colby off Street. We talked about, well, Habitat for Humanity is doing extra homes this year because of the help from our block grant money. And I might be missing some, but the tally I've got over on my desk, Randy just brought it down here and we went through it. It's in better shape than it was a couple of years ago, right? So that 500, I think it was 525 homes or units that we were supposed to have by the end of this year, we should be in the near 400 range.
Then, of course, that all goes kind of hand in hand with putting roofs over people's heads. That's the ultimate goal of this, not only bringing people to town, but finding places for people to stay. Obviously, the city has taken on the shelter, overnight shelter duties for at least the next 9 months or so towards the end of the year. How has the first week of that gone? Because I know that's something that obviously the city's been watching.
Yes, and I would say very successful. I was there on the opening night, the first night, had a chance to talk to some of the clients, if you will, and volunteers. We have a lot of volunteers. I was extremely pleased to see the number of volunteers that we had. And that's what it takes to run something like this, because you've got somewhere between 25 and 35 that are going to check in every night. So the first night we brought them in, processed them in, collected the data so we know who they are, what is their background, what are their needs, special needs, whatever. So I'm extremely impressed with the police department for standing this up, and mostly the volunteers that we've gotten to come along. We've extended the opportunity or the invitation for staff to go do some volunteering. During the check-in phase, it requires about 9 or 12 people there, because we do serve a meal. They check in their gear, they check in their phones, we get them set up with alarm clocks if they have jobs. And just the administrative part of checking people in and getting them settled in takes bodies, takes volunteers, and the more we can get to take a shift, the better. And I think I'll also invite our city alders. I had a couple of alders reach out and ask how can they get involved, because it'd be good for them to see what their efforts, what our spending is producing, and the needs of those who are showing up at the shelter.
Yeah, and I know this is something that, the city, we mentioned the city doesn't necessarily want to be in the business of real estate. The city might not necessarily want to be in the business of running a shelter like this, but this is the spot that you're in right now. So I know you've got the request for proposals out to other groups. Have you gotten anybody to bite on that yet? Do you think you're going to be able to find a way to bring another group in to run this early next year?
Sure. So the emphasis on temporary. So the city saw this gap and we needed to fill that. So that's what we did. So it was we stood this up fairly quickly. What it'll do is buy us time for those NGOs out there who are in that business to get things ready. They all have boards. They all have financial considerations and facilities. So I think within 5 to 6, 7 months, by the end of the year, we'll have another crack at a RFP that fits that need. Because remember, we're sitting at 30 down there at CPC. We're going to take to 60. And our current one here is, I think we have 50 beds over there.
50, yep.
So we do have capacity right now, and time will be our friend here. So, you don't want to rush something. We didn't want to jump into, you also, had we not done something, you'd have 30 some people on the street potentially every night.
Yeah, and that's obviously not something that nobody wants to see at all. So the city able to stand this up, as you mentioned, it in just a few weeks, but you still are going to need help. Obviously, this is going to run through the end of December, and the need is only going to get greater as we get closer to September, October, November, because of course there's that thing that comes around every year in Wisconsin, winter.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, people still need a bed and a pillow to put their head on, whether it's winter or summer.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see the numbers weren't quite that dropped off from winter, but we're not summer yet, although we're close. It's more comfortable outside in the summer, but it's still sleeping on a cot with a pillow and in a controlled environment is always preferred. And then maybe more importantly is that they have contact and access to people who are maybe in a position to help them connect to services, some of these people have jobs. In fact, quite a few of them. I spoke to several of them. So getting out of bed to go to work in the morning, having a good night's rest, puts you on a better path to eventually get out of the homeless trap, and rather than coming into work jeopardizing your employment because you aren't properly rested and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So if any group wants to come in and help out, if you've got that information off the top of your head, how kind of far out are you looking for volunteer help, and how should those groups reach out to the city?
Well, our community outreach, Tracy Rieger, is coordinating those. We do have quite a few volunteers. I'm sure she's willing to take the list and put them out there. And I think one of the keys to keeping volunteers energized and active is that they have their turns, they have their shifts, and we have some churches that have volunteered for a week. So I think we're working it on that kind of a basis, because if you put somebody in a position where they're running 7 days a week, even a volunteer who's enjoying the work, it can become a stress.
No doubt.
So I'm very optimistic that we have a good bench of people willing to step up, and that's a great thing to see.
Absolutely. Well, Mayor Doug, we always appreciate the time. We'll look forward to chatting again next month.
All right. Thanks, Michael.